But one day, I hope they release a purpose-built 3-pack of these figures that makes the necessary modifications. Deletes the belt from Iceman so you don't have to use a heat gun to get it off or cut it off. Gives him a nice blue tinge on top of that. Deletes Firestar's comic book collar so her head can move better. And then provide Iceman and Firestar with their respective ice and fire flows. A purpose-built 3-pack of those figures, those heroes from that show, could not go amiss at Hasbro. And now this happened. As I sit here with my fingers crossed, hoping that Hasbro will have heard my additional plea for a 6-figure set of the Arcade X-Men, just to see how that turns out, I'm forced to now look at this and wonder, was it worth it? Was the combination of these figures into this box and any extra effort that Hasbro put into it worthy of being called a suitable Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends 3-pack? The box is really nice. It has that opening intro animation redone with the figures, so it really evokes that nostalgic flavor for Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. But the packaging, as we all know, is just window dressing. Are the figures themselves going to stand up to scrutiny? We know they didn't with the 3 3/4 inch scale figures years ago because the figures inside had a lot to be desired. How do these stack up? I'm going to start with the little stuff first and then work my way up. So we're going to start with Miss Lion, the little dog. Firestar, the fan channel original Marvel Legends figure, came in a nice box with the background looking like their secret hideout, and she was the figure that came with Miss Lion. Miss Lion was notably painted the wrong color versus the cartoon. Some people have told me that the dog is actually more reflective of appearances the dog had in the comic book that I'm just not aware of. But the new Miss Lion that's in this package has been painted to look more accurate to the cartoon. That is a nice upgrade, I won't lie, even though the dog is the dog is the dog, and the figure in the original Firestar set looked like the dog, so I didn't really put much stock in it beyond that. But this is a nice thing to see. It shows that Hasbro put a little bit of effort into trying to get things a little closer with this particular character. Then we have Firestar. At a glance, Firestar seems to be the exact same figure from the original Marvel Legends fan channel offering. However, on closer inspection, you will immediately see that the new Firestar in the 3-pack is a pinless jointed figure. So they've gone back and given Firestar a full body upgrade.
Hey, you don't mind if I get closer, do you, hot stuff?
This also means that the paint apps on her flame effects on her costume are slightly different from the original figure. And the face itself is more detailed in the paintwork and looks different. I would argue looks more realistic, whereas the original fan channel version's face, you could say, looks more like the cartoon. But really the difference in her face is negligible and both faces are excellent. So that's up to you if you have both which head you want to display. The big disappointment here with the 3-pack Firestar is the fact that Hasbro retained the pop-up collar. This makes no sense given that they just reworked the entire figure for a nostalgia 3-pack based on the cartoon. So why they didn't take that opportunity to remove the pop-up collar, which is comic accurate, and replace it with the crew collar, which is cartoon accurate, doesn't make any sense. That is a disappointment. In fact, I'm just going to say it, if they had to choose between pinless joints and the pop-up collar being deleted, I would have preferred them deleting the pop-up collar. Because they certainly didn't try to delete the pins in Iceman. They've done an entirely new Iceman for this set that is not based on the X-Men retro-carded Marvel Legends figure from a few years ago. When I did my original combo review of those 3 figures that I put together to make an Amazing Friends group, I used the retro-carded Iceman. And at the time I did the review, I said I wished that Iceman had had just a little bit more of a blue tint to his translucent plastic to give him more of that original Toy Biz figure look, which also would have made him a very suitable Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends depiction. What Hasbro has decided to do here is scrap that figure entirely, take an older Spider-Man body, the one used on Pizza Delivery Spider-Man, and plop a new Iceman head on the top. And then take the whole figure and do this slipshod kind of cell shade paintwork on it. And I know this cell shading thing has become the new paint fad with action figures, but frankly, it never looks that good. And in the case of Iceman, it looks like he has severe windburn on one side of his face from a bad ski trip. It just looks awful. So now Iceman is the colors of the animation, but let's be brutally honest, he is way too skinny to match up with the animation Iceman. And I've just got to go off on a little tear here. I have never understood why some people want it animation accurate when we all know that the animation is trying to make a character look like another material. They're trying to make him look like ice. So I want my figure to look like ice, which is why I didn't have a problem with the retro X-Men Iceman's overall design and look. In the cartoon, Bobby is broad-shouldered and muscular as Iceman, and this figure is not. He practically looks like Christian Bale from The Machinist. I really think what Hasbro should have done is taken the body from the retro X-Men Iceman, sculpted a more animation-accurate head for him, given him a little bit more of a blue tint to his translucent plastic, and included him back in the set, and I think that would have done gangbusters. As it currently is, this Iceman will not be taking the place of my retro X-Men Iceman in my display. And finally, we come to what I feel is the most disappointing inclusion in this 3-pack, and that, sadly, is Spider-Man himself. You would think that Hasbro, after almost 20 years of doing Marvel Legends, would know how to do Spider-Man by now, since they've done Spider-Man after Spider-Man after Spider-Man, and they have so many different variations in their back pocket at this point, they have more than enough options to choose the right Spider-Man for the right application. But in this case, they decided, no, we're going to take a Spider-Man that was very specifically made for one application, and we're just going to throw it into this set. And as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't work. They have taken the Amazing Fantasy 15 Spider-Man from just a few months ago, which was a redone, resculpted Spider-Man with a smaller frame to make him look more like the teenager that he was in the original Steve Ditko comics, and they've just repainted it, taken the webs out of his armpits, and put him in this set. In fact, they didn't even bother to fill in the plug holes in his upper arms for the webs to go into. Granted, this Spider-Man has a pinless body, which is something collectors seem to be obsessed with these days. It doesn't matter how inappropriate or bad the figure is, if they've got a pinless body, collectors give them a pass. I simply find this Spider-Man to be too small in stature and too diminutive based on the animation. The animated Spider-Man in Amazing Friends was not this small. I do not like the head on this Spider-Man first and foremost. It has no nose, which makes the size of the head, which already looks too small, even smaller. And then on top of that, he's got those blasted squinty eyes. Now I know some people are obsessed with the idea that the squinty-headed Spider-Man looks more retro. And if you're talking Steve Ditko or arguably even the original 60s cartoon, then yes, I would agree with you. But for Spider-Man and his amazing friends, he did not have squinty eyes. So why they keep putting squinty eyes on retro Spider-Man of the 80s makes no sense to me. Yes, his eyes were smaller because we weren't in the McFarlane era, but the whites of his eyes were still balanced within the black frames. Otherwise, there's nothing wrong with the paint job on this Spider-Man, and it is a very nice figure with great articulation. I just think that the original retro 90s Spider-Man, not the one that just came out, but the one prior to that, the original release of Spider-Man in the retro 90s carded wave, I think he fits the bill for this Amazing Friends trio far better than the one they've included here. I think he's got the right classic face with all the right proportions for an 80s Spider-Man. He almost looks like he jumped off the cover of the wedding special. And he's got that more muscular build, which I think also makes him look closer to the Amazing Friends Spider-Man animation. All of these figures come with a combination of swappable hands, and Firestar even comes with her alternate head, which was included in the fan channel version. Overall, Hasbro's effort in some areas of this box set versus their total lack of effort in other areas is a disappointment. You had this one chance to do this, and you guys made some weird choices. You know, you have two figures that are pinless, and one that not only isn't pinless, but is also a very, very old body of a Spider-Man that does not match up with the actual animation Iceman at all, when your retro X-Men Iceman got closer to his body silhouette in the animation than the one you included. Same thing with the Spider-Man. You decided to go with your new hotness Spider-Man, which was specific to Amazing Fantasy 15, but the animated Spider-Man from Amazing Friends doesn't reflect that version of Spider-Man at all, so that action figure is completely inappropriate. And then you've got Firestar, who's been given a really nice upgrade to a pinless body, but she still has the inaccurate pop-up collar from the comics. The other blown opportunity here is that there are no premium accessories in this set. There's a tiny little ice stand that was recycled from the retro X-Men Iceman, but they could have done something far more substantive and dynamic here. And there's no fire flow for Firestar, which is also a real letdown. They didn't even provide Spider-Man with any webs like they do for some of the other figures. else. It just all seems very low rent. So this whole box, like so many Hasbro efforts these days, is a grab bag of bizarre. More than likely, what I'll probably end up doing is taking the pinless Firestar body, flipping a coin to see whether or not I use the cartoon head from the fan channel version or the cartoon head from this 3-pack, take Miss Lion with it, and put it with my retro 90s animated series Spider-Man and retro X-Men Iceman, and call it a day. I'm not saying that the Spider-Man figure itself in this set is bad, although I really don't like the head on it. But it's not appropriate for what they're trying to do here. And then on top of that, the Iceman is just baffling. I don't like the paint job. I don't like the body they used. He stands out like a sore thumb next to these other two because he's got pins in the joints. He's a mess. The Iceman is a real disappointment. He is the dog of this 3-pack. It's a literal mixed bag is what it is. And there was no reason it should have ended up this way. Hasbro has all the parts and pieces that they've already made to do this right. And I don't know who's at the wheel, but I suspect somebody made some sort of weird budgetary decisions, and that's how we ended up with an opportunity wasted. And that's what this 3-pack is. Some good things, but not enough to save it. And what's really poetic to me is their catchphrase in this show was "go for it." And Hasbro, you clearly weren't listening. You didn't take that to heart. Looking at this set, wrong!